Our story begins on the desolate, frigid hills of an isolated island. We meet Jilin, desperately searching for a place to shelter. After trekking for miles, he slips, plunging into an icy river. He floats for a while before pulling himself out, continuing his arduous journey. Exhaustion eventually overtakes him, and he collapses against a large rock. As he consumes a wildflower for sustenance, his thoughts drift back to the events that led him here. Jilin was serving a life sentence for the murder of 6 men. One afternoon, he was summoned by the prison warden, who asked him a peculiar question. "What do you dream of?" Jilin wasn't alone. Many other inmates were asked the same. Moryak longed to see the ocean. Yakut wished to witness the war against China. Obizyanka remained silent. Obizyan aspired to work in the prison and become a warden himself. Tolya was keen to follow the progress of the space station. Sipa simply yearned to see women again. Jilin's answer, however, remained a mystery. The warden then informed them they had been selected for transfer to a penal colony. Soon after, all the chosen prisoners were loaded onto a ship. Much like their previous incarceration, the prisoners were divided into groups and confined to cramped cells. Obizyan immediately asserted dominance, even killing another inmate to claim his bed. As the hatch sealed and the vessel set sail, panic erupted. The prisoners feared this was a ruse, designed to leave them to perish at sea. As tensions escalated into violence, Jilin recalled a past conversation with Sipa. Sipa, known for his severe mental issues, often babbled nonsense and drew on walls. But that day, he spoke of heaven and hell having no more room, and a third, purgatory-like realm being prepared for individuals like them. Jilin had dismissed it as Sipa's usual ramblings then, but now, the idea began to resonate. Eventually, the chaos subsided, and the men attempted to pass the time with idle chatter and meager food. Mid-journey, however, a gang escaped their cell, searching for a compatriot. Obizyan feigned negotiation, only to betray and kill the men they sought, igniting a brutal riot. Prisoners on both sides violently attacked each other through the bars. Only Stadier, an old man, remained behind, praying amidst the carnage. The fight was short-lived. Guards swiftly intervened, firing a warning shot before deploying a sleeping gas grenade, incapacitating everyone. They eventually arrived at a deserted island. The prisoners were fitted with numbered handcuffs and left on the beach, instructed to listen to Mr. Olafsson and Marta, the directors of the Terra Nova initiative. Due to the global ban on the death penalty, prisons worldwide were overflowing. In response, the Russian government had provided this land for the project, funded by international organizations. From this day forward, the prisoners would be colonists, living under their protection. All essential supplies, including 3 months' worth of food, were provided. A satellite would constantly monitor them, and communication buoys were strategically placed. They could reach a buoy by boat, press a red button, and voice any request. A green light would indicate acceptance. Obizyan vehemently protested the 24/7 surveillance, throwing a large rock. Guards quickly subdued him with warning shots. Marta clarified that the buoys could also be used to request departure from the project by stating their name and reason. If accepted, they would be returned to prison. Placing the buoys offshore ensured that such a decision would be carefully considered before risking the journey. Before departing, the guards scattered a pile of numbered keys on the sand, matching their handcuffs. The prisoners surged forward, fighting over the keys, while Jilin and Sipa shrewdly waited, gathering the keys others dropped. Stadier also stayed back, observing as a gang formed a protective perimeter around the remaining keys, while another group raided the crates left by the guards, arming themselves to attack the crowd. Ultimately, Ali's gang gained control. Ali secured a jacket and good shoes for himself and Stadier before selecting a man to send to the buoy. But as the man was seized, the opportunity was taken and the fight reignited. Dozens died in the ensuing melee. Moryak killed Ali with a rock. Obizyan bludgeoned Stadier to death with a rock as well. And the 3 men who attempted to reach the buoy by boat tragically fell into the sea and drowned. The surviving prisoners then converged on the warehouse to distribute supplies. Obizyan, using found tools, forcibly removed his handcuffs. Jilin packed supplies into a bag and grabbed a jacket, listening as Sipa claimed the food wouldn't last 3 months. Jilin then departed, intent on surviving alone and finding a way off the island, bringing us back to the story's beginning. Jilin explored the island until he discovered a snow-free area with a rocky formation offering shelter. He settled there, gazing at a hidden family photograph from his prison uniform. Overwhelmed by longing, he fell asleep, tears in his eyes. He awoke later to squealing sounds. Rodents, having infested the supplies, were devouring his food and his bag. When rain began, Jilin found refuge under the rocky formation, starting a fire for warmth and boiling water. After the rain ceased, he caught and roasted a bird. It was then that Sipa found him. While chatting, Sipa attempted to steal Jilin's knife, but Jilin caught him and retrieved it. Sipa offered some salt he possessed and his help in exchange for meat, which Jilin accepted. As Sipa gathered more wood, he spotted the family picture Jilin had hung on the rocks. He blew a kiss towards Jilin's wife in the photo. They shared the bird, and afterwards, Sipa walked to the cliff's edge, explaining he was too afraid to jump. He then asked Jilin why he also clung to life. Jilin revealed it was for his family. Though they were gone, he wished to be buried beside them, which couldn't happen if he died on this island. The two men fell asleep. When Jilin awoke, he discovered Sipa had stolen the picture, intending to use it as inspiration for his depraved drawings. Enraged, Jilin beat him and pushed him off the cliff. But Sipa didn't fall into the ocean, but landed on a hill directly below, surviving. Despite this violent disagreement, the two continued to travel together, exploring the island. Sipa found amusement in the trash floating in the water, while Jilin attempted to fish. The only living creature they found in the water was a bizarre aquatic centipede, which terrified Sipa. As Jilin looked around, he was shocked to find part of a seaplane among the rocks. A little further up the hill, he discovered the entire plane, sparking a flicker of hope. He was a pilot, and believed he could fly it. However, two men weren't enough to move it, so for now they returned to their shelter. Jilin started a fire using matches he had salvaged from the warehouse, but something in them produced toxic smoke. He quickly moved away, dragging a sleeping Sipa with him. Sipa was unresponsive at first, but a few shakes from Jilin brought him back to consciousness, though he continued to babble incoherently. Jilin realized the freezing cold would soon claim them. They decided to return to the base, hoping to steal some coal. Back at the base, life hadn't been anything but easy. Obizyan and his gang maintained strict control, enforcing a routine and sharing supplies. Obizyan even demanded they address him as governor. Anyone not part of his faction was confined to barracks, allowed out only for supervised walks in an enclosed area, mirroring real prisons, while Estinets shouted orders from the watchtower. When it was time to return, they were forced to run, as the last man to enter was killed and used for food. Jilin and Sipa managed to reach the coal box, finding the remnants of a fire. Having walked for so long, they were almost frozen and couldn't resist lying down next to the warmth, quickly falling asleep. Sipa, however, awoke quickly to noises. The gang was approaching with their latest prisoner for roasting. He dashed to hide behind a rock, but Jilin was still exposed. Sipa bravely returned to rescue him, but wasn't fast enough. Obizyan's men discovered and captured them. They were taken back to base, where Obizyan deliberated their punishment for having fled with supplies. Yakut attempted to remind Obizyan that Jilin and Sipa had been on their side during the ship fight, prompting Estinets to insult him for meddling. Yakut retaliated by striking Estinets, causing the entire gang to attack Yakut in return, earning him a place in the barracks with Jilin and Sipa. They walked for a while, and when Estinets announced it was time to return, Jilin lagged. Sipa, returning for him, dragged him inside. They could only watch as the last man standing was captured and tied to a pole, begging for water as a final wish. Sipa, moved by pity, brought a cup to his lips before he was executed. Later, before sleep, the group discussed the possibility of rebellion. They were hesitant, fearing the danger, but Shram convinced them it was a worthwhile endeavor. The next morning, Toya showed Obizyanka a secret trap he'd installed in his workshop to catch potential thieves. After the group's daily walk, Estinets attempted to herd them back inside for the usual deadly game, but only two men ran. The rest stood their ground and united, while Yakut threw a rock at Estinets to silence him. Jilin approached Obizyan and offered a deal. If he allowed them to go to the buoy to request food, Jilin would reveal the location of the plane he'd discovered. Obizyan accepted, opening the gate. As the boat was far enough, Obizyan ordered the group back to the barracks, retracting his deal. Yakut attempted to confront them, but was immediately killed. Then Obizyan grabbed another man before declaring the game was back on. The group could only flee back to the barracks, as fighting would be suicidal against Obizyan's armed men. Meanwhile at sea, one of the men fell overboard, but they managed to pull him back just in time. Toya reached the buoy and requested help, but it was broken, and even his tools were useless.
They returned to shore, and Jilin told Obizyan that food was on its way, but Obizyan didn't believe him, citing the lack of a green confirmation light. Toya reminded him of the plane's existence, but Obizyan dismissed it as untrue, though it inspired Obizyanka to move his arms like wings. Obizyan found this distracting and grabbed him by the neck. Toya seized the opportunity, attacking Obizyan from behind and killing him. Two other members of their group, Amurbek and Arzhanov, eliminated the rest of Obizyan's gang, watching Estinets escape before they could catch him. They asked Jilin what to do next. He urged them to free the men from the barracks, swearing food was coming and they simply hadn't seen the light because the buoy was broken. The men were skeptical, reminding him they now had plenty of bodies for food. Tolya, however, argued they should be buried. Jilin again brought up the plane, and Amurbek and Arzhanov finally agreed. They freed the prisoners, informing them they would wait a few days for food to arrive, but no one would be used as food anymore. Everyone needed to remain calm and cooperate. They also planned to send a group to retrieve the plane, which they would house in a newly constructed hangar and slowly repair for a future escape. Suddenly, Saipa interrupted their plans, claiming there was no satellite while using sand and 3 bodies to spell out an SOS message. Sometime later, Estinets returned to the base. Given the new rules of maintaining peace, they decided to overlook his past actions and share their food with him. Jilin guided a group of men towards the plane, their spirits visibly lifting when they saw he was telling the truth. Together, they disassembled it for easier transport and carried the pieces back to base. Eventually, Marta arrived at the island with a contingent of guards. They used gas to keep the men at bay, but allowed Jilin to approach and discuss their requested items. She was confused by their request for gas, and he explained it was for the generators, which were supposed to be wind-powered but failed during the polar night. In truth, they wanted the gas for the plane. Jilin seized the chance to ask why they hadn't responded to Saipa's SOS message. Marta explained their satellite was infrared, detecting heat. It could locate people and stoves, but not words. She also inquired about the men's activities far from the base days prior, and he lied, claiming they'd been fishing. They didn't believe him, as there were no fish in the area, so he lied again, stating they'd been eating the centipede-like creatures, which she found very shocking. They also wanted to know how many of the original 206 colonists remained, which Jilin found suspicious, as their satellite should provide that information. He told them 87 remained, many sick, but no one wished to abandon the project and return to jail. Before Jilin left, Marta informed him he had one personal request. He handed her a few sheets of paper, asking her to ensure the group was well provided for. Once the guards had delivered the new supplies, Jilin and his men tested the gas in the plane, hidden in the hangar, happily confirming it worked. Afterwards, they watched a new group of American prisoners arrive as the guards and Marta left the island. These prisoners also had a formidable leader, a very large man whom Jilin attempted to shake hands with. The man refused, instead striking Jilin, which triggered a brutal fight between both sides. The encounter was merciless, with no one hesitating to kill. Saipa dragged Jilin to hide him in the workshop. One of the Americans tried to follow, but he fell into Tolya's trap and died instantly. Arzhanov confronted the American leader and was overpowered, but before he could be killed, Amurbek intervened, slaying the large man as the surrounding buildings caught fire. All of this was observed by the project heads. Realizing the situation was completely out of control and that over 40% of the colony had been killed, Marta called the central office. She was instructed to proceed with code Naked Island, which sent a team of guards to the island to shoot all remaining prisoners, while Marta burned Jilin's letters. Luckily, a few men survived by hiding in the mountains or the hangar: Jilin, Saipa, Arzhanov, and Tolya. Together, they pushed the plane out, but as they were about to board, Saipa bid them farewell and ran towards the hills, no longer afraid, and leapt into the ocean. The remaining trio boarded the plane, and Jilin skillfully managed to take off safely, despite the guards firing upon them. His 2 companions died, but Jilin remained unharmed by the bullets, flying away into his freedom.